Minister, today again we have another report that shows the disaster which your housing plan is, a plan that now lies in tatters, with renters being fleeced and rent seeing double-digit increases in counties right across the state. Since you took office, Minister, just in case you're not aware, in the last 4 years rents have increased by 30%. And what does that mean for the average renter? It means that the average new renter is having to fork out an additional €4,500 each year to their landlord compared to when you took office. And it's not just new tenants now that are seeing massive hikes in rents, it's also existing tenants also. Because the crisis is impacting renters in every county across the state. In Donegal, rents for new tenancies have gone up by a staggering 23% in a single year. In County Clare, Minister, they've gone up by 19%. In Wexford, a shocking 24% increase in the past year for new rents. And today's report from the Residential Tenancies Board shows that rents are continuing to spiral out of control, with new rents increasing by an average of 11% across the state. Is it any wonder, Minister, that so many of our young people are having to leave their homes and leave their families for better opportunities elsewhere? And your government's housing crisis is putting a huge pressure on workers, on families and on these young people. The rental sector is clearly in crisis, and renters are the victims, and this is happening on your watch, on your government's watch. Now, you continue to say, and we've heard people from government tell us that they've turned a corner in relation to the housing crisis, but renters have reached a dead end. Renters have reached a dead end. They see in these reports the real lived experience year after year in relation to what is happening, where things go from bad to worse. And I'm sure in your response you'll talk about the 2% cap on rents in rent pressure zones. But existing rents, Minister, have increased by more than 5% in 19 counties, including Dublin, where it's over 4%. This sharp increase provides growing evidence that landlords are breaching the 2% cap on rent increases. So, Minister, can I ask you, do you believe that landlords are breaching the 2% cap on rent pressure zones? And if so, what are you going to do about it? Because you've done nothing so far. And workers and families desperately need relief. Those who are renting are trapped in an unaffordable rental system, while workers and families who should qualify for social and affordable housing and those supports are also stuck in the private rental sector, putting more pressure on the system. So, Minister, Sinn Féin solutions are twofold. First, to protect renters by banning further rent increases for a period of at least 3 years while putting a month's rent back into renters' pocket, and secondly, to dramatically increase the supply of social, affordable and cost rental homes. The fact is that your government isn't meeting its own abysmally low targets in this regard in terms of council houses, cost rental homes, affordable homes, targets that everybody knows are far too low to begin with. So, Minister, can I ask you, has the penny finally dropped in government buildings? Yet another damning report from the RTB that your housing plan is failing renters. Do you agree that we need to protect renters and ban further rent increases for a period of at least 3 years? And do you agree that you are failing to meet your housing targets in terms of social, affordable and cost rentals, and those targets need to be significantly increased and delivered upon? So can I ask you, will you support Sinn Féin's solution to protect renters and increase supply? Will you ban rent increases for the next 3 years?
Thank you very much, Deputy Doherty, for raising this issue. And the report that you are referring to from the RTB is just the second such report that they have published on the rent index report. So it's good that we have definitive data from the RTB in relation to rents associated with actual tenancies, and that gives us very valuable information as a government and as an Oireachtas in terms of the policy framework and the decisions that we make on an ongoing basis. And to the point about the RPZs, the report is very clear, and I think you know this, that the report itself is not a barometer of compliance with the RPZ legislation, because it captures all tenancies. So tenancies that are outside of the RPZ restrictions across the country are also accounted for within this report, and so it was never designed to be a measure of that. But what it does show is that rent levels for existing tenancies are about 18% below rent levels for new tenancies. Existing tenancies which are being renewed on an ongoing basis represent the bulk of the market, and in this particular report there are about 47,000 existing tenancies captured that were renewed in Q3 of last year, compared to 14,000 new tenancies that were registered within the data set. So the vast bulk of the tenancies that are recorded here as part of this report represented the renewal of existing tenancies, and that shows a much lower level of increase in the actual level of rent for those existing tenancies that were being renewed. And this is not, again, I repeat, a report that is measuring the effectiveness of the RPZ legislation, and that's very, very clear when you read the report itself. On the question of compliance with the RPZ legislation, that is a statutory function of the RTB. And they are active in that regard. There have been, if you look through their website, about 160 sanctions over the last number of years, and about 80% of those relate to breaches of the RPZ rules. So where breaches are taking place, that should be reported to the RTB, and they will carry out their enforcement work in the normal way. But fundamentally, the reason why rents are continuing to rise, Count Corla, is because there is a mismatch between supply and demand. That is the reality. But when you look at the activity rate, we are unquestionably now making very significant progress. There is real momentum in home building across the country. 32,700 homes built last year. That was a 10% improvement on 2022 and well ahead of the Housing for All target. And when you look at the construction commencements last year we had about 32,800 new homes where construction commenced, up 22% than the number that commenced in 2022. A particularly strong finish to last year, almost 9,000 commencements in Q4 of last year, which was up about 50% compared to the same quarter in 2022. And to your question and your proposal, Deputy, around freezing rents for a number of years, when I look at the data here, I see of the 32,700 homes built last year, there were over 11,600 apartments. Most of those are for the rental sector. That funding is primarily private capital. The state is playing a role, but much of it is private capital, institutional capital. And I have no doubt that were we to adopt your policy, it would impact on the supply of new homes, in particular the supply of rental accommodation across the country, and most particularly here in the city of Dublin, where those apartments and that supply is most acutely needed.
Deputy Doherty.
Minister, I genuinely feel for you trying to spin what is a terrible report. This report here spells out in clear evidence to all of us that your housing policy is completely in tatters. New rents have gone up 11% in the last year. That means that new rents compared to the last time that the RTB did this a year before is up €1,960 on your watch. On your watch. You talk about existing rents. Existing rents in many counties, in some cases they're double digits. Cavan has gone up 12.5%, Leitrim 7.4%, Longford over 10%, Roscommon 9.5%, Waterford 9.4%. It's not just new rents, it's existing rents. Renters are being fleeced, and it's on your watch, and you continue to spin and all the rest. And you talk about supply. Supply is part of the answer, but yet you fail to deliver on your own targets in terms of affordable and cost rental houses. That is a blatant fact, Minister. But supply isn't the only answer. It is also you need to ban rent increases for the next number of years. You need to make a decision on whose side you're on.
Please.
We are very clear in Sinn Féin that we are on the side of renters, and we do not stand by these runaway rents and a government that is allowing this to happen while families are being crucified and renters are being locked into an unaffordable
Deputy,
system.
if we adopt the Sinn Féin policy, supply of new homes will fall. We need, at the moment, at least 13 to 14 billion euro of capital to build over 30,000 homes a year. The state is providing 4 to 5 billion euro of that. We are likely, over the period ahead, to revise upwards the housing targets in Housing for All, and that will mean much more capital needed, perhaps up to 20 billion a year on average over the next number of years to build the homes that we need. And you are seeking to create an environment that is unfriendly to that investment, that will result in that investment stalling, and that ultimately will impact on the supply of homes. Ireland is an outlier in that construction is increasing. If you look across the Eurobarometer in terms of construction across the European Union, in most countries it is falling. In Ireland, construction is increasing because the demand is there, because the government is working collaboratively with the private sector to create the right conditions to inject real momentum into home building across this country in houses and in apartments, and we will continue to do that until we bring supply more closely aligned with demand, and that's ultimately how we deal with the issue of rising rents.
Thank you very much. We move to the Leader